From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hey, happy Monday to you all. I'm Jessica Ralston here on OpenLine tonight, taking a serious turn. We're talking about the Holly Bobo case and the investigation and some recent developments that have taken place over the last several weeks, which have been, in many cases, jaw-dropping and a very long time in the making. We are joined tonight by News Channel 5 legal analyst Nick Leonardo, who is also very well aware of this case and all the legalities and logistics involved. And we're expecting to get a lot of phone calls from the community because this has definitely been a very high-profile, controversial case. Several years went by with nothing happening, and then all of a sudden things begin to unravel and become public. So let's get everyone pretty much up to date on what's happened, transpired over the past couple weeks here.
Well, first off, we started with, Mr. Adams was arrested, and charged with this, and then, he was also charged with the additional crime of threatening a witness, a coercion of a witness, that being his brother.
His own brother, Dylan.
That's right, passed a message to the brother and told him that if he didn't quit talking to the cops, he's going to be in the hole beside her. Then we've had another recent indictment of an individual who is in Riverbend Maximum Security Penitentiary here in Nashville, and he's also charged with the felony murder. And then there's another individual who, at this time, I think his last name is Austin, who had an immunity agreement with the prosecution, and he was going to sit there and give the prosecution everything they needed in order to find the body, prove the case. And for whatever reason at this point in time, the leak or whatever's coming out in the media is that the prosecution has pulled that deal, the immunity agreement, aside, and now they're going to proceed with presenting those charges to the grand jury.
Yes, and trying to bring forth an indictment against him. That's Shane Austin we're talking about, who is the third player involved in all of this, according to prosecutors. Interesting about him is if you read the court paperwork involving Austin and his deal with prosecutors, it did allude to the fact that possibly the reason why he was given immunity is that he knew where the body was, or perhaps where body parts were. He would let them know where they were in exchange for his immunity and not being criminally charged in this case with whatever it might be, conspiracy or whatever went on after the fact, after this girl was murdered. And we saw the TBI out there digging on Zach Adams' property, and then they did tell us during the press conference last week, the news conference, that they did not find her body, which would seem, we don't want to speculate on it, but why prosecutors pulled back their deal, saying, hey, look, you told us you would help us find her, we gave you immunity, we didn't find her. So now they're going to come after him full force as well.
Well, and if they were going to, the interesting thing, though, Jessica, if they were going to come after him full force, why haven't they indicted him already? I mean, it seems like it's a thinly veiled threat. I mean, they have to be very careful down there, General McAdams does in Decatur County, because, when you start pulling immunity deals away from defendants and co-defendants, that kind of hurts the credibility of the office. And I'm sure there's a good reason that he has, but in this particular situation, the question is, did he lie to the district attorney's office, or did he say, I think you can find her in this well, or I think you may find her behind this convenience store, and it just proved to not be true. And as a part of that deal, obviously, he gave his entire set of facts. He implicated himself in this crime. And so, if he is indicted, at the point he's indicted, we could very well hear, there could be a hearing as to whether or not that immunity agreement should stand. And at that hearing, of course, it would be full of details as to how prosecutors know what they know and when they knew it.
Right. And obviously, I think that they know much more. Of course, they don't reveal everything to the public in an investigation like this, and when so much is going on. The TBI made it very clear during, again, that same news conference last week, saying this is not the end of it. If anyone else was involved in this, they pretty much got on TV, sent out a warning. Anyone involved in the murder, kidnapping, disappearance, or knew about this after the fact, we are coming after you. So I'm sure that there are other people sitting at home tonight that realize something will happen to them as well. It's not over.
Well, when we saw with this, we reported on it earlier with Nick and I had done some morning line or something, but we talked about that Gang of A, and that is a group of young men who have the names start with the last name beginning with A, and so they've now rounded up 3 of them. I think we've got a couple more to go. And of course, anybody who gave false or misleading information to the TBI that may not have been involved in a crime, but just chose to conceal or some sort of evidence or not tell about someone else's involvement could very well also be held accountable criminally.
Absolutely, and I guess a lot of the outrage from the community lies in the fact that it took this long to make these arrests. But again, you and I know how it really works. Sometimes you can have people pointing the finger at the same person over and over, but until you have evidence, you can't arrest that person. I think it's frustrating, though, for a lot of people, and we all know you cannot believe everything you read online. But if you go on some of these blogs and some of these forums, years ago, people had named these names, these people who are now going to be prosecuted. They say, we know it's the A gang, and we know it's so and so and so and so and so. Like, people knew those names were floating around, and until someone came forward or they had some kind of evidence where they could move forward, there wasn't much they could do. Well,
and one of the key things that it's important to point out for the general public is that, you know, the District Attorney General's office, they rely upon co-defendants turning evidence against other co-defendants all the time to make their case. So without a body, we know they're relying upon Zach Adams' brother, because now they have charged, you know, he's a victim, an alleged victim in a crime, and then they have the withdrawal of this immunity agreement. I think we're starting to see that the state's case right now is merely circumstantial, which is sufficient enough to convict these people of first-degree murder.
Right. A lot of people have posed that question: how can you move forward with a murder case without a body? But we've seen that happen many, many times. It can absolutely be done, and people can be convicted.
Well, just like in Perry March, in this particular case, you know, Zach Adams is not keeping his mouth shut while he's incarcerated, and it seems like, you know, the longer this goes, he's starting to talk, and there's, you know, now there's criminal charges coming from it. But, you know, you look at the Ariel Castro case in Cleveland, where those girls were missing for a long period of time. I mean, if you're a juror and you're sitting there, can you say beyond a reasonable doubt that Holly Bobo is dead? You know, by cases such as this Cleveland case, it could cast some reasonable doubt. So they're going to have some pretty strong circumstantial evidence, I think, to get a conviction in this case.
Absolutely, and a good point about the Castro case, because obviously those people would never have thought those girls were still alive, and look at the end result of that case as well. All right, we're going to talk about now some new developments that happened just last week that we shared on News Channel 5. Clarksburg-based and notorious attorney Fletcher Long will be leading the team that represents one of the suspects, one of the accused in this case. That is Jason Autry. He was the second man to be arrested, charged with murder and kidnapping. He spoke exclusively with News Channel 5's Emily Luxon last Friday about his role now in this case.
For Fletcher Long, a trip to the Riverbend Maximum Security Prison in Nashville resulted in a new client at the center of a major case.
But it's our case. We're thrilled to have it, and we're going to give this man every penny of the defense for which he is paid.
Bring the defendant in, please.
Earlier this week, Jason Autry pleaded not guilty to aggravated kidnapping and first-degree murder charges in connection to the Holly Bobo case. During that court appearance, the 39-year-old repeatedly said he had been wrongly accused.
Sir, I'm falsely accused and innocent.
He repeated the same frustrations to Long.
The more I'm exposed to him, the more impressed I am as to how very innocent he really is, and how he has been caught up in something that really has nothing to do with him.
Autry has been in custody at Riverbend Prison since being sentenced in an unrelated case in May of 2013. Long says still his client remains in good spirits.
These are tough circumstances. I think they'd be tough on anybody. He has put his faith in the ultimate power to which he ascribes, and he's bearing up pretty well under the circumstances.
Despite intense scrutiny surrounding the well-known case, Long and his team are ready to get to work to prove Autry is innocent.
You have to treat this case just like you do every case. You have to make sure that justice is done, make sure that the government is doing things correctly.
We're going to mount a vigorous defense. Mr. Autry was upbeat. He's going to be a good client to work with, and we expect a favorable result from the citizens of Decatur County.
Now, with all of this going on, we have to point out that Fletcher Long also has a very high-profile case as well that's happening in Davidson County, and that is he's representing one of the defendants in the Vanderbilt rape case. So these are two ginormous, is the only word I can think of, cases, high-profile, controversy all along. How does he handle two of these basically at the same time?
Well, you know, Mr. Long is a very seasoned trial attorney, both civil and criminal. And one thing, whether you like Fletcher Long or you don't like Fletcher Long, one thing that you will always hear is that he fights for his clients, and he does. And so, you know, he will leave no stone unturned. And needless to say, he's a very busy man with both of these cases.
Well, I would say no stone. There's hundreds of thousands of pages of evidence and documents to go through just with the Bobo case alone. And obviously, there's so much going on with the Vanderbilt rape case. So it does make you wonder, though, exactly how much time and attention you can devote to each case when they're happening.
Well, you know, and he's got some time. I think the Vanderbilt rape case is set for trial in August, and they've been working on that for a while. And I don't believe at this point in time that, I wouldn't think at least, that Mr. Long would have all the discovery yet. I think, you know, there's an ongoing investigation, and as a result of that, in the documents that I've seen, in the court filings that I've seen, they're still not releasing everything at this time because they don't want people to flee, they don't want evidence to be lost. So, I mean, he's definitely got his work cut out on both of them, but I know that he's up to the task as we've seen before.
All right. Okay, we do have a call already tonight. Don't forget, if you have a question, please call us at 737+. Greg, you are on the line. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, my question is, why do we let lawyers cost people so much money and know for money and represent people like this, knowing they're guilty? And we got a form of parents out there looking at their daughter being gone. And how can you charge somebody with a murder? It's just like O.J. Simpson. You know, we got O.J. Simpson was charged with a murder, but not to death. Now, what kind of situation is this in our society? It's pretty sad.
Well, Greg, I'd say that, based upon your statements, I don't know that you'd be an individual that's appropriately suited to sit on a jury of this particular case, because these people are presumed innocent, and they're presumed innocent. That presumption travels with them all the way throughout the trial. One of the very first questions that I ask at a jury trial, when I get up, the first thing I say after I say my name is, let me by a show of hands, how many people would find this individual not guilty? At that point in time, you must find that individual not guilty. So as lawyers, we have a job to do in society, and we don't ask our clients whether or not they're guilty or they're not guilty. The point is that they're entitled to a defense, and they are presumed innocent until all the evidence that you hear that comes from the witness stand is presented to you. You're not allowed to form any opinion or any bias. And so, as lawyers, when we're selecting juries, that's exactly what we're looking for: someone who automatically thinks a person's guilty simply because they're seated at counsel table between two lawyers.
All right, good answer. Okay, Mary, hi there. Thank you so much for your call tonight. What's your question?
Hi, my name's Mary. I just actually have a couple comments. Okay. I think it's really a sad thing that they can't actually show Holly's a picture of Holly at court. I think that's a sad story, and I also really think it's a sad story that if these two young men are found guilty of killing her, I can only imagine how terrible her last couple of moments must have been. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I know we've got a lot of people that feel the same. We saw the Bobos go to court with other families of murder victims, saying that we should have the right to have her picture and other victims' pictures shown in court, and then the court says, well, it could sway a jury. There are a lot of courts across the country that allow you to show a victim's picture. So it's pretty controversial, and I didn't even realize that was the situation in Tennessee until I moved here and all of this came about. So it's fascinating to me, and I think a lot of people in the community would agree with Mary 100%.
Well, and I understand Mary's sentiment, absolutely. And I think, Mark Bellinger did a piece where this legislature, was trying to deal with that very issue. But, Mary, what you run into a lot of times are, some prosecutors, not all, they would like to have a billboard-sized picture of the victim, just plastered on the wall or up for the jury to view the entire time. And, that preys upon the sympathies of a jury. And not only is the defendant entitled to a fair trial, but also the Bobo family is entitled to a fair trial. And, we don't want to prejudice the jury by, trying to appeal to their sense of emotion, where, a lot of these other photographs would be, germane or relevant, would be, autopsy photographs or other just horrific photographs. But I think they would allow, certain photographs to come into evidence. But, the issue is a lot of times they want to display them during closing argument, or the jurors are sitting there looking at them for 2 hours, and it's a high school, graduation picture or something like that. And, it makes you feel as though whoever's sitting in that chair charged with the crime is going to be convicted simply because of the emotion that the jury feels and the sympathy they have for the family, and rightfully so. So it's a tough balance to make, but the legislature does not need to be telling the courts how to decide their cases. It's really a violation of the separation of the powers. The courts need to determine under the rules of evidence on a case-by-case basis what is appropriate in that context.
Absolutely, but you can tell from Mary's call, she's obviously emotional, and this case has raised so many emotions in the community. People don't know yet exactly what happened to Holly in the time that she went disappearing. We don't know, and I'm sure some of that will come out in trial, but it is hard to think about a young woman like that and what she might have gone through, and I think that's why a lot of attention has been focused on this case from the public. Just devastated to think that a girl with so much promise ahead of her unfortunately met with a very untimely death, and you just don't know.
Well, and Nick Barris reported a while back that that the grandfather had told him off camera that Zach Adams' brother said that he saw Holly Bobo in Zach Adams' home, after she disappeared, but prior to her death. And so, she mentioned the last few moments or minutes, of Holly Bobo's life. So I mean, it appears as though through these eyewitnesses that are coming forward that Miss Bobo, she was alive for a period of time, and I don't know what the conditions were in that home or any more details, but this case is unfolding one piece at a time, and I have a feeling we'll hear more as the days progress.
Absolutely. Okay, we have some calls coming in, and don't forget, if you have a question or comment, we are here to take your calls. 737+. We'll be back to talk with a couple of our viewers in just a minute.